Right. Yeah. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are now recording the how to prepare your NSF project pitch. Really, the goal of this is to make sure that you get invited to submit a phase one proposal. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I'm able to advance this. We're going to go over a little bit of the SBIR 101 basics. Again, we're assuming that most of you are kind of get it. You get it. You know what SBIR is a little bit, but we're going to level set to make sure that we're looking at what's involved with SBIR. We're going to look at those 4 different sections of the NSF project pitch and how you can really most effectively answer those in those small word counts that are provided. And then we'll talk to you about some more of the next steps. So I'm going to go first. SBIR 101. What is SBIR and who's right for this? And we'll talk a little bit more about this. So actually, SBIR was started as a pilot project back in the 70s by the National Science Foundation. And in the 80s, it became more broadly accepted, broadly used by other agencies under the initial SBIR policy directive. But currently, over $4.2 billion has been invested annually in small businesses just like yours. It really is focused on making our nation much more technically competitive by investing in small, innovative businesses like yours. So if you are thinking about SBIR, STTR, you're really smart. It's a brilliant strategy. If you have high-tech, deep technology that needs to be developed, this is the only source of non-dilutive funding that the Small Business Administration is offering. It is the largest source of research and development funding through the SBA for small businesses in the nation. And the equity or the government will not take an equity stake in your business. So you actually really retain control of the direction of your company. One of the things, and will probably emphasize even more so today, is that going through this process, while we don't encourage people to do this just for an exercise, you'll start seeing that this is going to really provide you with the opportunity to gain a really good clarity on what's going to be required for your product development, for your innovation, and your initial go-to-market strategies, because those are 2 of the key components of these technical proposals and what these federal investors are looking for from you. They want to see that you know how to design a very strong research statement of work strategy, and that you have a good sense of what the market space is, the opportunity that will be available for your eventual product if it's developed. This is also a great way, by having these federal investors invest in your company, to de-risk it for future investors, venture capitals, even securing other types of leveraged funds, loans, or things like that. And while we are not going to go deep on this today, there are certain types of intellectual property protections afforded for the activities that are performed under a small business innovation research grant or contract. It is a form of non-disclosure called SBIR data rights. This type of data rights protection, plus the fact that you're competing for this, can potentially set you up if a federal government entity, it may be one of your customers, future customers. So for example, perhaps you're looking at National Science Foundation space portfolio right now, possibly NASA, possibly Space Force under the Department of Defense, may be potential customers for you. There are opportunities to leverage the fact that you have competed and won SBIR funding to try to secure future sole source contracts with some of those entities. It's not that simple. However, you do have that opportunity to try to pursue those types of things. Again, that's for a whole nother webinar. Let's look real quick, guys, at what we're talking about when we're talking about small business, innovation, and research. This is a very quick slide to talk about who is eligible. You do have to be a US-based, majority US-owned, for-profit, small business. Small means under 500 employees, including all of your affiliates. And you do have to be, the purposes really of this type of funding is focused on R&D. So your company doesn't have to be exclusively R&D. It just means that this type of funding is not for capital equipment. It's not to build your building. It's not to acquire real estate, et cetera. It is really primarily focused on the research and development required to prove out that to develop the product that you're looking at, that innovative product. And I'll say product in quotes, could be a service product. So that's what I mean by product. Innovation, there's a whole different definition in the SBIR policy directive. But when we're talking about NSF, they're really talking about, and it aligns with the SBIR policy directive, the general definition of innovative. It's something new that you cannot currently find out in the marketplace right now. It's addressing an important unmet need. So it has the opportunity to have some impact. It has market potential, meaning people will buy this. Has the potential to really form the basis of a significant enough product line for your company, help you launch your company in order to meet that important need that's out in the market space. And they're really seeing that this has the opportunity to scale, that it's not just kind of a one and done necessarily. They're kind of looking at all of those elements of what's innovative. So it's novel, new, and it has the potential to kind of form the basis of a marketable product. One of the ways that we like to talk about that here, and when we're thinking about what's innovative, what does it mean? Because there's a lot of innovations that aren't necessarily right for SBIR. In this case, is there technical risk? Does it really require research and development in order to prove out? So that's typically deeper technology types of things. And will it, if it's developed, will it move the needle? Will it have impact? That's a kind of a distilled way of looking at what is innovative. And then research means really, what in this sense, I really want to help you understand how is your proposal, how is your innovation going to be reviewed by reviewers? Because right now, many of you have these bigger pictures of what you want to accomplish. Now we're going to all guide you to try to start in this SBIR journey section of your lifestyle, your company. We want you to get a little tactical now. Right now, you want to be thinking about how are the reviewers perceiving what I'm trying to accomplish, and start talking to them. So the reviewers are going to be looking for intellectual merits, your scientific research design. They want to see that it's very scientifically sound, that you're very clearly stating what needs to be done, what tests you're going to be doing, and how you're going to accomplish that. They also want to see that what they might be investing in can really, as I mentioned, move the needle. It has some broader impacts. It really has the potential to both benefit society or specific or meet some really clear mission needs. And then they're going to be looking at your company and team. They want to make sure that your team is competent to carry out the scientific research, but also to aggressively commercialize this technology once it's developed. So we'll talk about more of those today. Again, this is a 3-phase program. And what we're talking right now, you're going to get this invitation to submit a phase 1 proposal to the National Science Foundation. Some of you have heard of other opportunities with other agencies for direct to phase 2 or things like that. National Science Foundation, you need to enter in at proving the feasibility of your potential idea. And that'll be a phase 1 project. Currently, that's about $275,000 for up to 6, possibly 12 months worth of work. And this is really the time where you're going to discover and confirm that what your idea is actually feasible to do. Then, if you're successful with that, and your proposal for phase 2 is very strong, you could go on further for additional phase 2 funding. And for the purposes right now, guys, I'm not going to go deep, but there's a whole host of other types of support, either through our types of FAST programs and through the agencies that can help you with commercialization. So you'll also be coached by us or your other counsel and with the agencies to really take advantage of some of these other complementary supplemental services that you can do to take advantage of for commercialization. Commercialization is what we talk about phase 3. That actually is never any SBIR dollars. It's only those first 2 phases that are actually money, that $4.2 billion. That's all for phase 1 and phase 2 funding. And NSF, again, what's cool about the NSF, it is probably the broadest portfolio area. They love to see the most innovative, the new, the next great thing. But the opportunity here is that whether or not you are in photonics or biotech or AI across the board, ag tech, you might think about NSF because they have such a broad portfolio. And if you haven't already, take a look at the NSF Seeds website, NSF's SBIR site. Take a look at all of those different portfolio areas to learn more about what areas they fund. So I'm going to kick it off now. Kelly, how do we get started with this?
Thanks, Anne. That's great. Well, the purpose of getting started is with that NSF project pitch. So let's go ahead and just move right into the next slide. The importance of the project pitch, it's twofold. It helps the small business and it also helps NSF. So the small businesses are going to get to determine if they meet the NSF program objectives. It'll help them save time if they find out they don't. So the first thing is that you'll be able to confirm that your business and your proposal meets NSF program objectives. You'll get feedback and guidance from the NSF staff. If your pitch seems like a good fit, you'll be invited to submit a full proposal. If your project is not accepted, you get the feedback and you can learn why you were not successful. And you can use that feedback and then submit during the next open window after preparing and modifying your pitch and program. The project pitch, the great news is it's available online. You submit it online. You can do it anytime. It's open 365 days a year, 24/7. So if you're a night owl, you can do it in the middle of the night. If you're an early morning bird, you can do it in the morning. So that's the other great thing is it's an opportunity you can do anytime. You are limited to only having one project pitch under consideration during the submission window. And after you submit your project pitch, you will get feedback within 4 weeks. If you're invited for a full proposal submission, you get 1 year from the date of submission to submit your phase 1 proposal. Okay, next slide. So Anne has already talked a lot about what is research and development. What's important to know is that NSF has outlined these 3 areas that they'll be looking at. And NSF, your goal as a small business is for to determine the scientific and technical feasibility of a new concept or innovation. It's important, as Anne said, that it has to be unproven, high impact. And NSF is going to use these 3 methods to determine, is this research and development? I'm not going to read it specifically for you. We just have it here so you know. When they receive your proposal, they will be evaluating your project pitch to determine if it meets this definition. Anne's going to be talking about later about the technical objectives, but keep in mind that it should address scientific and engineering tasks such as experiments, computations. However, it cannot be straight engineering. NSF has a list of things that are not research and development. So sometimes it's easier to think about it in terms of what it's not. So it can't be an incremental modification of an established product or proven concept. It can't be straightforward engineering or manufacturing with little risk, and risk is where the research happens. Evaluation or testing of existing products or features. It can't be basic scientific research that has no commercial potential. Basic research happens at universities, not at small businesses. Needs to be make sure that there are no non-technical efforts such as business development, market research, sales, marketing, patent costs. Those things are not research and development. Okay, Anne or Melissa, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? On the research and development? Okay, all right. So there are 4 basic components that are coming up. We'll be talking about the word content in each, the technological innovation, the technical objectives and challenges, the market opportunity, and the company and team. And we'll be going into more depth in that. Thank you.
Awesome. So the first section of the project pitch is going to be talking about the technology or product or innovation that you will be developing. When we think about technology or innovation, something important is to remember that it can come in many different forms. It can be a physical product, it can be a service, it can be an adjusted process to be a shift from how things have been done as the status quo right now. I always like to talk about new things or very recent awards that NSF has funded. And so you could really see the broad spectrum of ideas and technologies and products that they'd like to bring to the market. So here we have anything from developing 3D printed metal molds for reef restoration to creating the digital twin models for climate resilience. They also have a focus on medical products or medical devices, for example, that sealant for gastrointestinal wound protection. They also have robotics, and when folks typically think about technology, some more robotic directions for products. And then they also have things like, bioengineering yeast to mitigate methane emissions from cattle. And lots of times when you have a technology, you may think that the National Institutes of Health is a great direction, or the United States Department of Agriculture, or the Department of Defense. Always keep in mind that NSF is there as well. And if you have this high risk question, especially if it's taking a component of your full product, NSF could be a direction that you can go in. Next slide. Okay, so when you describe your technology, you have up to 500 words to describe the innovation that will be the focus of your phase 1 project. They look for a brief discussion of the origins and why it meets the program's mandate on supporting R&D for high impact, high risk, and unproven innovations. The first thing you really need to do is describe your innovation. What does it do? What does it look like? What is it? Then really think about how is it different from the competition. Lots of times I have folks say there's nothing out there that looks like my product or my technology, but that doesn't mean you don't have competition. That just means that your competition is the status quo. How are folks solving that problem right now? And why would your technology, your product, your innovation, why would it be better, faster, cheaper for folks to adopt compared to what they're doing right now? I'll also in this section explain the background for what inspired your innovation. Where you're sitting in your office or in your lab and you identify this big problem, you're like, oh man, I really wish there was something that can solve this and I can sell this to whatever market you identify. Bring that background story into your technology innovation section. And in this section, I always recommend for folks to also include at least one sentence to describe how it meets the mandate of supporting R&D, leverage the definition of R&D that you saw a few slides ago, and really align that with the work that you're doing. And as Anne mentioned, there are very broad topics within the National Science SBIR efforts. Each of those topics, they also have subtopics. And what you really want to do is make sure when you're describing your innovation, it's clear which topic and subtopic it falls under. So make sure that you are providing enough detail for the reviewers to be able to visualize what that final product will be. Next slide. Okay, and then you want to tie your unproven high impact innovation to NSF initiatives. If you're familiar with the NSF or the National Science Foundation, they have lots of directives, lots of different research happening at any point. So do some research, see if they funded similar things in the past. I always recommend for folks to look at their topic portfolio or visit sbir.gov. There you can type in keywords and really look up technology or projects that may be in the similar sphere as you are. That helps in many ways. One, it helps you see if you do align with the direction that NSF is going. But then it also helps with that scope of work idea, or as you're creating that scope of work for yourself, you can kind of see how much are other companies or other startups proposing to complete during the phase 1 project. And that is a part of the evaluation process as they see if you are eligible. Then also see, are there other grant opportunities where they are looking for solutions like the ones that you're delivering? SBIR is just one branch of funding that NSF releases. See what else, what other directions they're going in as well. Tie their wording into what you are describing. Really show that what you are developing aligns with the direction that they're looking to go in as well. And then with NSF, and we've talked about this already, NSF is really focused on that high risk, unproven, high impact technology. And Anne will dive a little bit more into this, but really think about what are those challenges or risks that are really preventing you from delivering or creating your innovation right now. And something, as you are writing proposal packages, you don't want to just sprinkle something in and then don't reference it throughout the rest of your project pitch or your proposal package. You kind of want the sections to mirror each other. So introduce what the challenges are in the initial section and then dive a little bit more deeper into what is required in the next section. Next slide.
That's me. So next section is talking about this. This is perfect. So thanks, Melissa. Because what Melissa just said as well is going to be really important. And it goes back to when I'm talking about, when you're getting coaching from us or other counsel, if you're in a different state, for example, we're really going to start helping you in your very specific SBIR journey. So we're going to challenge you, speaking of challenges, to really, hone in on what as being as clear as possible, so that you can prepare as competitive of a proposal as possible. And this first concept paper, this project pitch, is really trying to get the NSF interested in, hey, I want to see a full proposal from this company. I want to see what they're proposing. And as you're talking about you'll talk about your innovation. This next step, that second section is the technical objectives and challenges. The NSF wants to know, well, why should we fund this? Why can't people do this now? And this is your opportunity to tell them, this is why this cannot be done. This is hard to do. And that's what we mean by now narrow into what are those 2 to 3, maybe 4 technical things that are preventing this product from being available now. Those unknowns, those things that are hard to do. Not just simple engineering or direct engineering. Sometimes engineering is hard, but we're really talking about the research and development that is, I need to make sure that this can actually work. So think about the riskiest components of your product development that need to be proven. Not all of the engineering tasks, not the 3D printing or this or that. Talk about the risky parts of your product development that need to be done, and make those kind of the basis of, if I can prove that these things are feasible, that we can do these, it would be worth throwing another $1 million+ into this product development. That's kind of one of the criteria. So here are some of the questions. How do you define those? Again, thinking about which are we need to identify the objectives that would be the focus of a phase 1 proposal. Understand what are those things that are risky. Tell them why they're important, why other companies or the current science, even though there's some foundational, maybe basic science that's coming out of university somewhere that supports that this might be a good approach. But why is this not in practice now? Describe a little bit about that. What's difficult about achieving these types of, overcoming these or proving these things? Because they want to invest in things that are kind of hard to do in a sense. Your concept may be simple, but they really want to invest in that research and development. How does, what you also want to describe is, if you're able to prove these, how does that really help you move get to the next step? How does proving these are feasible help you with streamlining the product development that will come after it? Describe why that's important. And then space permitted. Again, this section, you only have 500. Hit a little bit. You'll expand upon this in your phase 1 proposal, but hit a little bit about how you intend to de-risk this. Here's a challenge, and we think that we can try to determine if it's feasible or not by doing this. Describe that very briefly here. That helps the NSF understand that you have something challenging that's worthy of their type of investment, and that you have a pretty good idea of how you're going to tackle de-risking it, conducting research on it. So again, what are the riskiest objectives that you have for your product development? And that if you can't prove them, you wouldn't put another dollar into it. And it's okay. We can talk more about, well, what if I choose an objective and it's not feasible? We can coach you on, well, have an alternative approach. Because if you really think that, I think that we can probably do something here, you'll prepare some alternative approaches, or you'll show how you might pivot to a different method. But really the ultimate goal is, hey, I want to make sure that these are feasible, so that we can start devoting more money to investing in the product development for this. Again, I talk about, and most of us here, keep it simple. Remember, you have 6 months worth of time typically on an NSF phase 1, and most of the other agencies as well. Typically is about 6 months worth of work on average. You want to make sure that you can do what you propose to do in those 6 months. So identify 2 to 4 objectives. Keep it simple. 2 to 3 is ideal. The things that are most critical to proving the feasibility of your approach. And because again, you'll have other engineering tasks that are going to need to be done, but really think of just those risky things. Make sure that you're focusing on the highest risk. Make sure that you're thinking of the way I would address this is scientifically sound. So as Melissa had talked about, reference how things are currently being done. Sometimes we use the phrase, the current state of the art. And that current state of the art can be what other competitive types of companies are doing things, what types of research is coming out of universities, how have people tried to address this problem in other ways. They will actually want to see that you're approaching this in a very scientifically measured way. And then you want to be thinking about how will I test these out? How do I measure that these are success? How do I decide whether or not I should do it or not, or I should proceed or not proceed? Those are those measures of success. Again, you'll expand upon these in your full phase 1 proposal, but they want to see a little bit, a taste of what you're trying to do here in this 500 words. And I'm going to switch over now to another really important thing is the market opportunity. Kelly.
Great, thank you, Anne. Yeah, with the market opportunity, this is your opportunity, sorry to use that word twice, to show National Science Foundation that you understand that your technology has market pull and that you understand your customer pain points and have developed a commercialization approach that's a business model that's going to bring the product to market. Next slide. So the market opportunity, you only get 250 words. It can seem like a lot when you start, but once you start writing, you're going to realize it's not very much space. You're encouraged to identify the customer profile and pain points that will be the near-term commercial focus of your technological project. So we have some key questions that you can start thinking about. So what problem are you addressing? Who will benefit? Who will use it? Who will buy it? Why do they need your solution? How many people does this affect? How big is the problem? It's important for you to think about answering these. And again, also also for you to remember that if this is just your projections at this point in time. So if you need to pivot later on, you certainly can as you move forward with your phase 1 proposal. So next slide. When we're looking at the market opportunity and we're looking at that pain point, it's important for you to describe the problem that is faced in the marketplace. What are the pain points that are felt by your prospective customers? What current solutions, how are they currently solving this problem? And what are the weaknesses of the current solution? And you have to remember that doing nothing is currently a solution. So people are currently solving the problem. And you have to convince National Science Foundation that you have that market pull and that you have a real appreciation of the pain point. So some of the categories of pain might be it's too expensive. It might be the process or productivity levels are low. Outcomes are not as good as they could be. You want to make sure that you're very specific when you're explaining those pain points and talk about how many people does this affect? What are the overall costs? And identify how big is the problem. Next slide. When we're talking about the customer, you may have heard people talk about total addressable market, the service addressable market, and the service obtainable market when you're looking at the broad overall market. It's best if you can be as specific as possible. You don't want to say everyone with a cell phone can use my product. You want to make sure you get as narrowed and focused as you can. And you can do that by looking at providing a brief profile of your ideal or your target customer. So these are the people who are going to benefit the most from your product. And you have to also make sure that you understand a difference between the people who will buy your product and those who will use it. So make sure you understand the difference between those two and make sure you're clearly identifying the direct users and indirect customers. Again, we talked about developing a persona. You know, if you have a product that is appealing to women who have small children and income bracket of such and such, you would want to include that if you can. When you're describing anticipated market or market segments, you want to include a market size, initial target market. And you have to make sure that you be as specific as possible and focus on the early adapters and those willing to spend money now to solve the problem. You need to indicate the extent of your customer discovery efforts. So how did you find out that customers have this problem? Did you participate in a regional or national I-Corps program? Have you done customer interviews on your own? If not, that's okay. But if you have, you want to make sure you mention it. An example would be through our participation in NSF Great Plains I-Corps Hub, we interviewed 25 customers and found. So that's the way you could introduce that you've done this customer discovery, and it brings credibility. It's also important for you to emphasize both the significance of both the market opportunity and the societal impact. Show how large the market is, that it's large enough and important enough to justify NSF's investment. I wanted to share with you, one of our companies that participated has agreed to allow us to share an example. So Unlocked Labs, they're a company out of Laramie, Wyoming. They're developing probiotic strains that have potential for improving people's health and the welfare and health of the American public. They said there are 9.2 gout patients in the U.S. alone and a total of 45 million U.S. Americans with hyperuricemia. So they pulled up a broad introduction of the market and they expanded it to include a larger, that's a different Unlocked Labs, a larger market. So that's one way to think about talking about your market so that the National Science Foundation can see how large the market could be. All right, and Melissa's now going to share some information on the company and team.
So, yeah, sorry about that. I thought, well, let me find it for you. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'll post a link in the chat if people wanted to go look at their project.
Yeah. And guys, we do see some chats. We'll make sure that we get to those as well. We'll get to your questions for sure.
Awesome. That final part of the project pitch is going to be the description of your company and team. There, you only have 250 words to really describe the background of your small business, describe your key team members, and how they will all work together for the technical and commercial efforts described in your pitch and for your phase 1 work. This is a short section, but an important section. This is where you build credibility for your team. This is where you show what your team's expertise is, and actually convince the reviewers that you have the skills to complete the work that you're proposing. So here's some key questions to consider as you are developing this section. So what is your company's history, mission, and goals? How many employees do you have right now? You can also allude to employees that you will have in the future. What is important for reviewers to know about your key staff? And I'll talk about this here in just a second, but there are specific things you want to include. And then are there any specific business or scientific advisors that are going to contribute to the plan? And when you are writing any sort of proposal, especially these shorter proposals, show confidence in what you are writing. So, you know, lots of times I see when folks talk about their market, we're like, we may potentially go into this market or we may complete this. No, you want to build the credibility and show that you are confident in completing what you're promising to these agencies. So an example here is, you know, upon award, our new firm will hire 2 full-time people. Obviously, you'll be more specific than this, but you really want to act as if you're going to win the award. You've already won the award. You have the expertise and you have knowledge of that market. Reviewers and program managers know things will shift, and during your phase 1 and then transition to phase 2, there's programming and money for you to develop new directions and really fine-tune that prototype, fine-tune your market, but really show that confidence as you are writing. Next slide. Okay, so within that 250 word limit, you want to provide a brief overview of your company, include your organizational structure, provide a mission or goal. What do you envision that company to look like with, you know, next 5, 10, 15 years? Connect that initial story of the origins of the innovation to why this company was started originally. There also talk about the number of employees you have. Lots of times I have folks like, oh, well, we're only a team of maybe 2 people. That's totally fine. If you look over here on the right side, you see that the number of phase 1 awardees compared to the number of employees. And for NSF, they really are looking for that early company, that early startup. And NSF is unique as well, where they really look to fund those first-time recipients. Across other agencies, first-time recipients make up about 30% of their awardees. At NSF, it's at 80%. So they typically want folks that are very early on, very early to government contracting or grant opportunities, and they understand that you will grow. So that 20 to 40 number, you'll probably be there by maybe end of phase 2 after all of that prototyping and potential new directions you found. But most NSF awardees are a very early business, a very early startup with a revolutionary idea. So in addition to the number of employees, talk about and briefly mention current and projected revenue, any startup funds, any additional interest that there is in your startup. You want to identify key team members, their roles, and then their experience in product development and commercialization. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. And then identify that key personnel. So one thing you'll see, they'll ask for that principal investigator. They'll call it a PI as well. And that really is the leader of this effort. It doesn't always have to be the CEO. Just really think about who on your team is going to be most aligned with the work that you are promising to complete. Also for key personnel, there should be folks that are a business focused and commercialization focused as well. NSF SBIR is different than other NSF opportunities where in typical NSF research, they really look at that development of intellectual merit. They want the newest ideas to be arisen from their funding. With the SBIR, yes, they want the newest ideas, they want the most high impact technologies, but they want that pathway to commercialization. So not only do you need the best technical folks or the best ones for your effort, but you also need the folks that can take that project over to that commercialization side. Next slide. Okay, and so when you describe your team, starting with your principal investigator, make sure that you are talking about their aligned strengths. Most PIs are going to have many years of experience, lots of published work. They're going to have a long history in a certain scientific or technical discipline, but we don't want to list everything. This isn't a CV. What you want to do is really highlight what aligns directly with the work that you are doing here. And the same thing for your folks that are on the technical and business side of your team. Really align what their strengths are with the work that you're completing. So for example, if we think back to that coral reef restoration project that I mentioned, of course, you'll need a marine biologist, and that marine biologist, I'm sure, has looked at a bunch of different things within the ocean, but do they have that expertise to look at coral restoration? Can they actually be that subject matter expert or that technical expert for that effort? And then on the business side as well, you're going to have folks that have commercialization expertise, but do they have commercialization expertise in the sector that you are looking to commercialize in? So again, think about their prior technical research, their development experience, project management, certifications, and financial expertise, but make sure it aligns with the work that you're doing. And if by some chance you don't have that within your core team members, that's where you bring in advisors. NSF and all SBIR CTR agencies, they welcome the efforts of advisors to kind of guide you along whatever pathway you may be taking. And once we do start supporting you through writing your full proposal package, there is ways to show that those advisors have buy-in, and you really want to show that to reviewers where folks that are experts in this field, they are interested. And something to keep in mind, $275,000 sounds like a lot. But feasibility testing is very expensive, and the majority of your phase 1 money should go towards salary and wages for folks. So make sure that when you are coming up with your objectives, when you are putting together your team, make sure that that scope and team size aligns with the budget. That's something that reviewers really harp on. If you say you have 6 objectives and they see each objective has 15 tasks, there's no way you're going to finish it within that period of performance and within that budget. So kind of keep that in mind, and keep in mind the time of folks, right? Not everybody's going to be working on that budget, on that project for the whole period of performance. They may be there for initial 3 months and then a month. Then keep that in mind as you are developing that budget and then that scope of work for your period of performance. Next slide.
So this is sort of next steps, Melissa, Kelly, we can all kind of chime in on this, guys. So just to, so we've covered today right now. So we want to make sure that we have some time to make sure we field questions and cover some other things. But what we want to do is make sure that you have confirmed that your company is eligible. There are required registrations for any agency. You're going to have to be registered on sam.gov. Well, before that, you will have to have an EIN or a company tax identification number if you have not already done that. So you have to form your small business. You don't have to do any of this before you submit a project pitch. So if you're a new launching startup, then that's okay. But that will have to be done before you are eligible to submit a proposal in the future. So it doesn't hurt though. While it's not required for the project pitch submission, it doesn't hurt for you to make sure that you have all of those things started. SAM registration, your IRS.gov tax identification number for your company, registration on SBIR.gov. And then when it comes time to submitting proposals, every agency has a proposal submission platform of some sort. And NSF has research.gov. So you'll actually want to make sure that you have registration on that submission portal as well. Again, that's not required right now, but make sure that you take a look at the NSF seed. So as we had here, I'm going to go ahead and go there, visit NSF, the seedfund.nsf.gov, take a look at their portfolio areas, take a look at the resources for applicants, and all of these things. They'll tell you how they review proposals. They'll give you a lot of this information. So these are really important things for you to actually take advantage of while, in this time frame. Get your pitch drafted, write up those answers kind of offline to all of those questions and have someone review it, give you some feedback on that. Make sure that its word count is within 500, 250, 250, right? Submit it, right? Just don't worry too much. Make sure you get it submitted. You're going to be notified within 3 weeks of whether or not 3 options. Yes, go ahead. We'd like to see a full proposal from you. That's great. Get started on your proposal and you can get guidance there. No, if you get a no answer from the NSF, that means that they did not think that what you were proposing is responsive. Now you can get some counsel to see if, gosh, do I need to submit a new project pitch? Did they miss something there? That may be an option. But what's wonderful about this process is if they don't think it's a good fit, let's not chase this money. This is really hard money and it's a long time frame. The soonest you'll get get any of this award money is probably about 9 months after you've submitted a proposal. So it's not quick money either. So look at these options of that. The other option is they give you back some feedback. They say, or they have some clarifying questions. That's that maybe, but we don't know. Can you answer some more things? And they'll give you an opportunity, 500 more words to clarify some things. And here's an example. We won't read through it, but they're going to have a very boilerplate response. But the program director, they do read all of these individually. And they're going to say, well, I'm not ready to give you a full invitation, but I have these questions. So what you'll want to do is you'll have about a week's time to come up with some answers to what they've asked for. And then they'll do the same back and forth. I've actually had people where they've had 3 back and forths with the project manager, the project officer, program officer at NSF about questions about their pitch before they got a final answer. And then finally, we do want to invite, we were going to have a date, but NSF, we don't know when NSF's next solicitation officially will be coming out. So we wanted to wait. Kelly and Melissa and I have offered kind of 4 to 6 week, depending on, the timing, proposal labs where we meet once a week with people who are actively in the process of submitting an NSF proposal. So typically that means that you've actually been invited, and with few exceptions, if you haven't been invited yet, but we think that, you'll probably get there. People can join this cohort where we actually work you through the process of all of the elements of the full submission for a proposal, we'll let you know. This is a great opportunity to, one, kind of learn, get some guidance and accelerator of sorts to get through preparing a really strong, competitive and compliant proposal. But also what we find in one of the greatest opportunities is meeting other founders like yourselves, and just kind of bouncing ideas off of that. So we will let you know when that is open. Well, let's Kelly, questions in the chat that we should address? And guys, feel free. We went through this faster, which is great. Questions that you guys have? And Kelly, maybe I'll let you take
Yeah,
that.
someone has asked if they should include charts or illustrations in the project pitch. I've never had a company do that. I guess I would ask Anne and Melissa if you've had a company do that.
I have. I'm going to say, guys, try to make this narrative, but there is. I think that the submission will allow rich text so that you might be able to, but be careful. I mean, again, this is a concept paper just to get your invitation. So try to articulate what you're saying in words to address those sections. But I have seen that be added before. And I can't say that that would make it more compelling or not. So I would defer to try to make it without words. And if you think that there's something that's really helpful, if it's allowed, if it gets uploaded in that rich text format, you can do that. Melissa, have you done that?
Yeah, I've gone into their submission portal a few times and it really is kind of text boxes. So if you do include an image, you really won't be able to place it where you would like to place it.
That's true. Yeah.
And that takes away from the story that you're telling. You also want to include captions for any images that you include or any graphics, and the submission platform really doesn't allow for that. But for the full proposal package, yes to images and graphics to explain your story.
It is absolutely a great question, guys. But yeah, long story short, no, I defer not. I'd not do that.
Okay. There's another question about when you're evaluating your market opportunity. How do government contracts factor into the overall value proposition as we approach bringing our product to market, particularly considering our engagement with the market opportunity? And my response would be, I don't think National Science Foundation cares if the government is your primary customer. I think that would be a fine customer segment. Anna, Melissa, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have traction, either for other products, obviously for this product, it still needs development. So we're assuming that it's not for this particular thing, but showing that you have commercial traction, whether it's government contractors or not, or other contract funding, for sure, that can certainly help. Without going too deep, you cannot get funded by federal government for the similar work. So if we're not talking about contracts for the same type of work, we're talking about just that you have traction with other entities or other agencies. That doesn't hurt. NSF does like to fund those new ideas soon.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like.
Thank you.
Kasia, Kasha, how are you doing? Questions? Oh, now you're on mute again.
You nailed it. It's Kashia.
Kasia, yes, thanks.
I'm from Hawaii. It's a crazy name. So
Yeah,
3
it's a great
strikes, you're out. So my question was actually the one specifically for government contracts, specifically when we're talking about bringing it to concept. My business, or my husband's business, is 100% service related disabled veteran,
Right.
giving us access and priority to over $300 billion worth of set aside contracts. And in their process with the SAM.gov, they are required to give us preference over everyone else, assuming we deliver on it. So when I'm thinking about Cosmic Connections as our example here, and bringing it to market, okay, let's say we get past the research and development, we prove concept, and we're talking about how we're going to bring this to market. Can we leverage that benefit to be able to say, look, this is how we're going to do it?
It's going to be one of the things, and I will absolutely. You can indicate in your company and team section that this is veteran-owned, disabled, business that that you will be describing in for potential future contracts. And because the government will be one important customer of you guys.
Oh,
So yeah, I
specific-
think mention it. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that going to tip the scale completely in the proposal, whether it wins or loses? No. They are going to focus on the intellectual records at this point right now.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, talking about the strategy that you'll take in the future,
Right.
you'll do that more deeply in the product or in the full proposal, because there's
Okay.
a market opportunity in the full proposal where you have many more words to describe. some of those.
Yay for more words.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well,
Yep.
thank you so much for answering my question. And I just want to clarify, my business is a grant writing business. It's just a different one. So it would be in a partnership with Cosmic
Absolutely.
Connections for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Right,
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions, guys? Any other questions? I think there was a question that came up too about, hey, who can we leverage you? You guys certainly feel free to come over to us. I'm going to go ahead here and get this. I want to let people know, Melissa and Kelly, guys, we are here. Feel free to ping us with some questions. But if you are not in New Mexico, Wyoming, or Montana, or have affiliations with entities within New Mexico, Wyoming, or Montana, you may also have a FAST program. That's the program, the Federal and State Technology Partnerships, that funds much of our work that we do here for you in your own state or territory. And I would invite you to go to SBIR.gov and take a look at Find Local Assistance. And you can specifically look for FAST, F-A-S-T. And if there's one of those entities, reach out to them to see what types of services. We all kind of run our programs a little differently. Three of us have, a lot of them are very similar. We're here to help you with solicitation matching, helping you be as successful as possible with the SBIR process. So take a look there. You may find someone else. And if you cannot find an organization in your state, you can reach back out to us and we can see what we can do to help you. Any other questions?
There's a question
Okay.
about what's the difference between the PI and the business commercialization lead, if anyone wanted to address that.
Want to take that, Melissa, as you covered some of that?
Yeah, for the PI, so your PI can also be somebody that has a technical expertise. They could also be somebody that has the business expertise. There are certain requirements for the PI, so they need to be primarily employed by the small business or by the startup, and that's at least it's more than 50% on a 40-hour work week. But for the PI, what you want is somebody that overall has ability to manage the whole project, has time to commit to the project, and then has that expertise as well. I've seen PIs that are more business focused, and I've also seen PIs that are more technical focused. I would recommend having a PI that has more of that technical background. And then, if there are areas where they need support or areas, where there's additional expertise they may need, bring on other key or senior personnel, maybe at a shorter time frame, that can fill in those gaps that the PI may not have.
Yeah. What's really lovely right now, guys, is that this doesn't, you're sending a concept paper to NSF to get that invitation. They want to see your team. You can flesh out some of the whose role is what. You don't have to say, and our PI will be this in this company and team. They're not asking you to describe that necessarily. The PI does, as Melissa said, the PI can be eventually, when you submit a proposal, by budget, or, in terms of time, hours, as little as 10% hours of on this. However, we encourage, and what we see mostly, because we work so much with startups, you guys are small teams. Typically, the PI is also one of the key people who is involved in, performing the work that you're defining in your proposal. So if you have an exception from that, feel free to talk to us and we can kind of help you kind of flesh that out a little bit if for some reason, but generally it should be someone who's kind of directly involved with this. I think at this phase, and again, getting 40 to 50 plus percent of your time, nobody should be more than probably 80% of their hours dedicated to this, because you just have time in a 40 hours work week. And again, we'll talk about other things like that. We'll talk about, in a 40-hour work week, that's their basis. So while you may work 68 hours a week, the basis for the proposal has to be based on 40 hours of work. And you have to have, you're gonna have to have time responding to emails. You're gonna have to have time preparing for the next funding opportunity you're looking for, things like that. So think about, who can lead the project. That's who your PI is. Other key personnel can be both employees and or contractors and advisors. Well, hopefully that helped. Yeah.
Okay, I see another question here. It says, how much should we talk about future potential? For example, our near term, it could be a drone engine, but long term, it could be a more efficient airline engine. Do we talk about that or just focus on the immediate impact? And I understand Jason's question here because he doesn't want to seem that the company is unfocused. So Anne and Melissa, do you have some advice here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, Jason. I think one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you're looking at who are think about it, who would be the beachhead market, right? What is the best first entry point to the marketplace that will help you to gain traction? And that's how you can actually poise everything within your proposal. The technical objectives of things, we're going to try to accomplish this because that will help us to meet this important need. And then you will describe in your market opportunity, and for phase 2 and beyond, this will proving this is feasible and that we have this future product development. This will also give us the opportunity to enter these additional markets. That helps address that question of, I'm trying to boil the ocean here. No, I'm focused, but I do have opportunities for other markets that I want to take advantage of. Yeah, I think that would be the way I would answer that question. Other thoughts, Melissa or Kelly?
I would think about just what that scope of work that you're proposing, make sure it aligns with the initial market that you want to enter. NSF does like projects or products, innovations that can potentially have a very large impact across markets.
True.
But you don't want to say, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to capture 50% of this market in a year. Probably not really feasible. So really see what aligns with the work that you are doing. Where do you think you'll be at the end of phase 2 when you develop that prototype? And then how will you enter that initial beachhead, as Anne mentioned?
Yeah, it's okay to not have your first customers be everybody. It really, those first customers, those early adopters are going to be, continue to help you with product market fit. And I think all of us have seen, guys, I know that we have just a little bit of time left. I'll speak for myself. 100% of my clients, when I talk with them after they've done their work, the proposal, their work that they've done for SBIR or STTR, 100% have either pivoted on the market that they thought they initially were going to enter and or the technology development, or both. So they've shifted. And it doesn't mean like it's a completely threw the baby out with the bathwater, but they definitely, nobody has is exactly true to what they first came to this with. They've always pivoted. They've redefined what their market is. They've redefined what the technology needs to be. So have that grace for yourself. Know that you're going to shift, but right now your conversation and what you want to talk to them about is at this snapshot in time, this is what we believe. This is how we think that we're going to approach this. So hopefully that's helpful. You guys, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much. Definitely some more questions. If there's any questions that we might not have captured in the chat, I'll make sure that we grab those. We'll make sure we send off the PDF, an updated PDF for you all as well. And thanks everyone for spending your lunch hour with us.
Thank you so much. This is very incredible information and should smoothline the process. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, we will talk soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks everyone. I'm going to capture these before I close everything off.
Do it. Get it.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you, Melka, for your time.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate it. Very, very informative, and I appreciate everything. Give me a lot to work on. But
yeah. No, you guys have a great start. So I think hopefully this was a really helpful.
Thank you.
We'll talk with you more.
Again,
Yes.
thank you, ladies.
Thank you,
Again,
guys.
thank you, ladies, for your time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, we're leaving.